fucking raccoon on the thing.
Low-key, imagine if you're going down a hill with that thing going on. I mean, like, that's got to be, like, top 5 worst experiences. Or being a Lions fan's one, too. I mean, they've been good recently, but, like, after last year, but also, they got pretty good, so see how good the roster is. Let's get this thing rolling. And with that, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the NFL. Please like and subscribe. Hope y'all are ready for the Detroit Lions 2026 roster. This is gonna be a fun one to get through. Again, they're a juggernaut on offense, as I think y'all know, and then defensively, well, I mean, pretty good too. Not going to lie. But, again, this is a very peculiar team in a lot of ways. Again, this is another team that, again, missed the playoffs. They actually finished last in the division last year, which I don't think a lot of people really noticed just because, tiebreakers and stuff. But, again, they kind of fell off towards the end of the season. But, again, this is a team with Dan Campbell that, after, again, starting 1-6 in 2022, has been one of the best teams in football since then. Obviously, making it to the NFC Championship 2023, having a brutal loss in that 2024 playoff game as they did earn the 1 seed, winning 15 games. And then this past year, as I mentioned, kind of falling off a little bit, but at least offensively looking just as good, if not better, than they have in past seasons. As y'all know, though, if you have not watched past roster grades, go watch the Jacksonville Jaguars one. First time stamp will tell you all you guys need to know if you really just want to get into this. If you're just here for the Lions, you could probably figure out as we go. With that said, we do start with quarterback, and then we get into the skill positions, and then after that, it kind of goes normally. But okay. Quarterback position for the Lions, kind of not a ton to talk about here. I'm not going to lie. But we'll start with Luke Altmaier, who was their third round, who's a UDFA for them. He'll definitely be fighting for a spot on this roster. I'd be quite surprised if the Lions carry 3 quarterbacks. I can't tell you the last time they did. Why is he in a Patriots uniform? Like, why? Luke Altmaier is an interesting dude, though. He's very, very good at processing the the entire field. Very good vision there. Really, the biggest problem with him is that he doesn't really have any above-average traits in terms of his arm. The good thing, though, like I said, the fact that he's able to process that well, and also he's very good at reading out these zones, which I think is something, at least in this system, which will be a huge benefit for him. And also, he is a much faster release than Jared Goff, which is a good thing. But will he be the starter? Or not? If we win the backup job, I think he honestly is a higher upside guy, which is kind of crazy because he's 23. But we'll see what happens. He's got a camp battle there. Then you have Teddy Bridgewater as the backup. Teddy Bridgewater is Onk. He's 33. He really hasn't been. What the hell? Where's all his other stats? This is so bizarre. Is it because he just there's a glitch? Whatever. Teddy Bridgewater he's not really even an average backup, guys. I don't even know what to tell y'all. He filled in for Teddy. Not for Teddy. What the heck am I talking about? For Baker Mayfield in week 18. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, week 18 week 12 against the Rams in that game they got blown out. He looked really bad. He was low-key fat, too. I'm not going to lie. He looked like he was retired. But again, back in business here. Obviously, I think he come back for the Lions playoff run back in 2024, and they didn't even make much of a playoff run. Sorry, bringing back bad memories, Lions. And he obviously was there as a back in 2023. But Teddy Bridgewater, I don't even know why the stats are messed up here or horned or whatever they are. But again, he obviously started for the Broncos. No, he didn't. Where are these stats? Again, this is completely glitched. But again, obviously, I guess he retired. Teddy Bridgewater, he was offensive rookie or something like that. Pro Bowl quarterback for the Vikings a couple years ago. He hasn't truly been a starter, though, since 2021. I don't even know what to think about Teddy Bridgewater, guys. He's just here. He's not a very good backup. At this point in his career, I mean, I guess Teddy Two Gloves, who really knows? He's there. Jared Goff, though, as a starter. He was second in the league in touchdowns last year with 34 passing. Yardage-wise was the best year. Again, he's had over 4,500 yards the past 3 years, which I think is pretty ridiculous. Over 4,400 the past 4 years. Statistically, he's been one of the more productive quarterbacks we've seen over the past, honestly, like 4 years. Biggest thing, though, with him is that obviously he hasn't been great in the playoffs, and he's a little bit limited overall at times. But again, just straight up drop back, he's gotten better and better. And again, like I said, statistically last year he was dominant. So for anyone who's saying that he sucks, I mean, I don't really know what you're talking about. Jared Goff is arguably a top 10 quarterback statistically. He's arguably a top 5 quarterback. But obviously we look at him in terms of his clutch play and him elevating this team. He's not a guy that's going to elevate. That's why the Rams traded for him got rid of him back in the 2020 offseason. But anyways, Jared Goff's still obviously a very good quarterback. I'm going to give him a B+. You could put him in A tier if you wanted to. The problem, I'm not going to boost him into that because he's not that guy who's going to elevate your team. It's just the truth. He's about as good as he gets before you get to an actual elite, legit quarterback, which I think is, again, I'm not saying he's capped out because who really knows what's going to happen there. He got this team to win 15 games 2 years ago. Like, what am I going to say? But still, the playoff success has hasn't, again, it remains to be seen if he can win a Super Bowl. It's that simple. He hasn't been able to elevate his team yet. That's just the truth. But still, again, he's on the precipice of A tier. If he goes out there, throws 40 touchdowns, and is nearly an MVP candidate and all that, go ahead and throw him in there because he has that potential. I'll tell you all that. But anyways, with that said, let's get into his absolute loaded skill position. Okay, guys, now we're moving into this Lions skill position group, and it is a group that at least last year was tremendously successful overall. Again, there's some of the best players in football at these positions. We'll start at running back as we always do, though. Again, I did receiver, I think, what was it, with the Saints at the Commanders. It really doesn't matter. That's obviously a very strong part of their team as well. All right, at running back, obviously Jahmyr Gibbs. He's probably the best back in football right now, I think, overall. Just, again, the quality of explosive plays you could get him. He's been over a 5-yard per carry guy in his entire career, even with 250 carries 2 years ago. But again, I don't think he's a guy that I'd want to be getting over 250 just because of what this offense is going to look like when he is. He's never been a guy in his career outside, I guess, that 1 year at Georgia Tech, where he's been asked to be that bell cow back because, again, the team absolutely sucked. Even then, again, Jahmyr Gibbs still wasn't asked to do as much. What the hell? I need to know what happened in this game. Pitt, Georgia Tech, 2021. They got blown out 52-21. That stat line. That's like a Saquon Barkley game. I mean, it's 6 for 125, so who really cares? But as a receiver, but what the hell? But anyways, yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs is the best back in football, I think, right now. I'm pretty confident in saying that. But yeah, the biggest thing with Jahmyr is, again, he's not a guy. He's a true bell cow, Derrick Henry type usage. He's just not. But obviously, as a receiver, he is very high quality. He's the best fantasy back in football right now. But even fantasy-wise, he's still the best back in football just because, again, he is the most explosive running back in football right now. Again, you could have said Saquon 2 years ago, but I don't even. Yeah, I think Jahmyr Gibbs, he's just that good, and then the speed's just unmatched. Again, we look at him coming out of Alabama, we're like, is he going to be this good? I don't really think anyone was going to think he was going to turn out to be this good, but he is. So yeah, Isaiah Pacheco's the backup. Isaiah Pacheco has not looked even remotely okay in 2 years. Again, obviously 2023, 935 yards, he was an absolute beast. He's still breaking tackles at least a respectable rate, which I like a lot, but the burst is just not there. Last year, at least looked somewhat explosive at times. Again, I guess despite having a less long rush, it's weird. But he looked at least a little better. For him to be productive in this offense, so they need to get the ball in the red zone, which I think is the one reason I think you might. When you're drafting fantasy, again, that's just really where I'm going with an outlook here with Isaiah. But again, he's going to get a decent run in this offense because, again, if you're the Lions and you want to be a successful team this year, you can't have Jahmyr Gibbs, like I said, getting over 300 touches is the max with him, and even then, I think you'd want to be around 275. If you have, I think the perfect sweet spot for Jahmyr Gibbs is 275 touches, maybe a little bit. I'll be honest. Yeah, we'll push it. 300 touches is probably perfect for Jahmyr Gibbs. Anything more, you're like, eesh. Anything less, you're like, are we underusing him? Stuff like that. But again, he's that good. But again, at some point, you're like, are we risking it there? Then you also have Sione Vaki, who's their third string back. I don't really know what the hell he's doing here. I haven't seen him play enough in preseason. He'll definitely be a guy I'll be watching on this team though. And where's Craig Reynolds? No, I'm joking. He got caught last season, which kind of sucks. But Craig Reynolds, if this thing doesn't explode, which it definitely will. Craig Reynolds was on this Detroit team for literally 4 years. He had a beast game versus the Cardinals in 2021, but again, he was their backup, third string guy for a while there. And he obviously was pretty successful there as well. So, yeah, for me, this running back room is obviously an A+. Again, you could give it an A++ if you want. I just think there's a little bit of uncertainty there with the Jahmyr Gibbs usage. But, again, he's the best back in football. So, I'll say 36 points there. Again, there's really nothing else to say. All right, moving this wide receiver core, and they legitimately have 2 number 1 wide receivers. I guess James Williams not totally that, but he had a breakout year last year. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's one of the best route runners in football, and his route tree is probably the most advanced right now in football. I think I can say that pretty confidently. Just because you get, again, a very, very high level diversification on deeper routes. Again, it's really just on top of the fact that he can run 5 different variations of crossers, and him and Jared Goff are still on the same page. Obviously, career high 172 targets last year. And again, his route tree gets better and better, and again, he goes against even better corners. The fact that he is still cooking teams the way he is, and he's just so dominant against zone and still can beat guys in press down to down. I mean, they're simply put, he's one of the best technicians we've seen in a while. And you can just line him up in the slot whenever you want to, and you'll be chilling. Jameson Williams obviously is their deep threat. He had 1,100 yards last year, absolutely monster season. You can't stop this guy in the open field. I think that's the biggest thing I figured out with this dude. He is best when he's in the open field, whether that's a jet sweep, whether that's a quick hitter, a dagger concept, a freaking bomb. It really doesn't matter. Well, I guess it kind of does in that sense, but we'll move past that. Again, open field, Jameson Williams is going to fry you. And even then, you look at him as just an underneath guy that's going to create yardage that way. Obviously, he's obviously one of the best deep threats in football right now, and I think he's a legitimate number one when he's out there because he does create a crap ton of separation. The ACL injury he suffered in 2021 looks to be completely gone now, which again is like, why are you bringing that up? Trust his top of the route were kind of funky in 22, where he didn't even play in 2023. We had the gambling suspension. But anyways, Isaac TeSlaa's here. He's going to be a red zone threat for them. See, he had 16. Again, this is like, I don't even know why. There should be a projection about who's going to be the next Nick Westbrook, Akine, because again, that was Isaac TeSlaa last year. 16 catches, 6 touchdowns. And I think what did Westbrook have, like 20 catches, 8 touchdowns 2 years ago. That's got to be a prediction to start the season. But yeah, obviously he's known to have some insane catches. His body control is definitely up there within the rest of the league. Biggest problem with him though is he doesn't really create the greatest amount of separation, just because I don't think he's a guy that is changing direction really at that high of a rate. But still, he's pretty shifty, and I think he's a guy who can, if he can create at least some sort of yak on top of, again, his body control being that 50-50 guy, it'll be a really good option for him as a third receiver. But again, nonetheless, he's going to be a red zone threat anyway. Greg Dortch is here. I would not be surprised if he wins the job as a slot receiver. His route tree's always been really solid. The biggest problem with him, he's never really been a guy that's been a high ceiling, just because he doesn't really break a ton of tackles when he is in the open field, and he doesn't really gain the separation, at least downfield, that you really need for him to be a legitimate threat. Still, though, underneath, he runs a lot of good routes. He creates enough. Not even separation. He just gets himself in good leverage there, and again, have room to make catches. And I think in an offense where you obviously have a guy like that, Amon-Ra St. Brown, put Amon-Ra in a spot where he can really just, again, roam free, and again, Jameson Williams can just completely blow up in the defense. Greg Dortch can have, again, a defined slot role there. You have Dominic Levat, or Levet, I don't know how to pronounce it, at Georgia. This is a physical receiver. I'm still, like, wondering why he is kind of trash, to be honest with you guys. Last year, he didn't really get to play a ton in the preseason even. From what I remember in the college football season this year, he really never got open on a consistent basis. And honestly, again, I'm watching preseason, but he's a physical receiver. I'd like to see him get a little bit of run there. Cedric Wilson has not been a good player in years. Mike Cunningham used to be a quarterback, kind of funny there. Lucky Jackson is the best name on this roster. But for me, this receiving core is still gross. I'm going to give it an A. You could give it an A-, a B+. But again, the fact you have like a legit top 3, and again, a guy like Isaac TeSlaa, who we'll see about, and even Greg Dortch, who I think is a solid player, really good fourth option. Obviously, after that kind of falls off, but I don't really care. You have, again, legitimately 2 number 1 receivers. Like, there's not much I can really complain about there. I'm not going to give it an A+, though, because again, you can... It's close. I'm gonna say it an A. You could definitely give it an A+ if you really wanted to. I wouldn't really combat that at all, but I'm gonna stick that there. So 9, 18, what is that? 27, 33 points, I think. Now for the tight end position, this is definitely a little bit peculiar here. Obviously, Sam Laporta last year still had really solid numbers. He again struggled with injury. Honestly, last year was probably on to have the best season. From what I remember from him last season, again, obviously that Vikings game he went off. Where is it? Where's the Vikings game? There we go. He went off that game. But his blocking has gotten significantly better. I think that's something that, again, is a little bit of a misconception. Well, he's not a guy that's going to completely be an impact blocker. He's still a guy that's consistently getting to his spots and making it hard for these star defensive linemen to kind of be effective. Still, though, again, he's a highly productive guy. He's a yak machine. He breaks so many tackles. And, again, just his overall route tree in terms of the middle of the field is very, very competent and very, very threatening as well for you. So, again, the fact that all play action, too, he's money. But, yeah, Sam Laporta, he's a legit guy. Brock Wright's his backup. He's honestly another solid player. The biggest problem with him is that he's definitely limited in terms of what he can do down in the field. But again, still a guy that can break enough tackles once here and there. Again, obviously that 51-yard touchdown back in 2022 does display that. But again, he's really a blocker out there. He is that impact blocker they have, and he's been that for a while now. Tyler Conklin, while he's out right now, I don't even know why. What the hell happened? Knee? Why is Tyler Conklin on the PUP list? Okay, so he'll be fine. But anyways, Jack Conklin's been a starter in the past, or no, Tyler Conklin, my bad. I guess he played games last year. I'm not gonna lie, I think he just got phased out of the starting role with Gadsden having his numbers. But again, he had those 3 years with the Jets where he was really reliable. He's never really been a guy that I think has been even somewhat respectable in the red zone because he's not really the best blocker. And he just doesn't really do a good job on high pointing the ball. Still, though, he's very nifty against zone. He'll be a reliable backup for them in terms of as a receiving option. Then we have Andy Ferguson here, who is definitely a straight line dude. He started a couple years for the Titans, or like at least 1 year. I think 20 he started. But yeah, he's kind of just around. For me, this tight end position is still really solid. I'm gonna give them an A-. I really like what's going on here. I think Sam Laporta is arguably a top 7 tight end right now. Again, the injuries definitely something talking. Him and Tucker Kraft are very similar. I think Tucker Kraft's a little bit better, but still. And then obviously Brock Wright and Tyler Conklin are really solid backups. You could argue it's a B plus, but I'm gonna say an A minus just because again I really look at the direction where not Brock Wright. Sam Laporta was going last year. That's gonna be 20 points. Now let's look at this offensive line. And moving into this Lions offensive line, again, it's been a group that at times in the past has been regarded as one of the best in football, and it still, I think, at least earns some of that right. But again, of course, there's a lot of influx coming on here. Obviously, a guy like Dalton Reisner's gone, and again, obviously, Frank Ragnar's been retired for a minute now, and of course, the kind of surprising retirement of Taylor Decker after they let him go. Those kind of have put this offensive line in a little bit weird spot. First, though, we'll talk about Penei Sewell. He is the most athletic offensive lineman in football, other than, I guess, you could say Trent Williams, but even then, it's like, it really doesn't matter. Again, just give him the title. And he's obviously an absolute, like, just freaking animal. There's no other way to put it. Like, there's no way to, like, even consistently win against that guy. I mean, I guess, again, unless you're, like, freaking Myles Garrett, but even then, like, Myles Garrett still had struggles against him. Not struggles, but slowed down. Giovanni Manu, I don't know who you are. I legitimately have no idea who this dude is. I've heard he's really athletic and has really good leverage, but that just doesn't really tell me much. I need to see that guy play. Christian Monagany, last year, as really his first year starting, he kind of was an up-and-down guy. He got exposed definitely earlier in the season. I remember there were certain games. I'm really looking back to that Ravens game where he really didn't play all that well. But again, he's a really solid run blocker. And I think, again, if he can just become a little more consistent as a pass blocker, again, as basic as that sounds, that'll do a really good job in kind of sustaining his process. And the reason I say his process is because a lot of the things he does in his pass blocking kind of builds into kind of his confidence as a run blocker and kind of the aggressiveness he has. And again, I think that's kind of where, again, you can really see the elevation as a run blocker because that's where he's going to make his money. Juice Scruggs is his backup. Juice Scruggs kind of sucks. He's never really been even, like, consistent at all as a run blocker, and in terms of his pass blocking, it's like, yeah, he's kind of agile and kind of take on some of those twitchy dudes, but he can't stop power, so like, why is he out there? He's not the greatest. Cade Mays is a really good center from the Panthers. Again, there's a reason they let him go, and it's just because he's not always the greatest again in terms of creating holes, but still, when you put him in double team and he's kind of able to pin down, he is a lot more effective, and he's very, very good jumping to second level off of some of those plays. And as a pass blocker, kind of just your average Joe at center. He's going to get beat once in a while, but it's going to be fine. Michael Neese, I don't know who you are. That's not great. Colby Sorsdal is honestly okay. The biggest thing I have with him is that he's not the most athletic, which does put him in spots where he is not always the most effective and does get exposed. But other than that, he's got good technique, again, especially his first punch. Tate Ratledge had a really fun season. Last year, he's super aggressive as a run blocker. That's probably the reason Jahmyr Gibbs had such a successful season. Still, those pass blocking, I think that Jared Goff got more comfortable with him in the pocket there towards the end of the season because he was really good at kind of just driving down. But when he has to consistently anchor, it's kind of in a spot where he's not the most comfortable. So I'd like to see him, at least throughout this training camp and the preseason, kind of really try to anchor that down so that he can kind of be more comfortable in those kind of obvious passing situations where he can definitely be a more effective overall. You have Blake Miller. I think it was a reach get going 17th overall here, but he's still a very solid guy in a lot of ways, and I think that his agility has improved a lot from what we saw even last year, so I do expect that to kind of be a bigger part of his game. He's obviously a pass blocker primary, though, but again, as long as he can be respectful setting the edge, there's really no reason he can't have a solid rookie season. Still, though, you will see him get beat here and there. Then you have Larry Borum. I think will be competing for a backup tackle spot. He's not a guy that I really look at as the most exciting player, but again, like I said, solid technique. He's really good on a second punch, and he's also very good at resetting off of counters. Same time, though, he gets beat with power too consistently, and he does not do a good job at sealing off that outer edge where really bendy edge rushers can beat him. Other than that, you get a bunch of backups here that I guess could make the roster. Devin Cochran's probably my favorite there. Ben Barch has played in the past, but again, a guy like Seth McLaughlin, it's not very likely there. For me, though, this offensive line, I'm going to give a B. It's hard to give him higher. Obviously, Penei Sewell is an absolute rock star, but Tate Ratledge, again, he's probably the next best guy there. Christian Monagany still has a lot of work to do. Cade Mays is solid. Blake Miller's, again, he's going to be a rookie. The depth is questionable for sure. You could argue it's a B+, but again, this offense a lot of times last year did have their struggles. Again, the continuity isn't completely there either, so I'm going to say 16 points and a B there. I'd want to give them higher, but I think that's where I'm going to stick there. And if we added that up, that's me 45, 36, 33, 20, and 16. That's going to give this offense 150 points, which is not really that surprising. This is an absolutely loaded offense. That'll put them in the A tier, which is where they belong. You could argue it's an A+. It's just the fact that I'm not completely sold on this offensive line. And again, I guess that's really the only thing. And I guess the Laporta injury, because again, if Laporta was healthy, it would be an easy A. You could argue it is an A. And again, you could also give it an A+ for the receiver if you really like Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Go ahead and do it, whatever floats your boat. But again, A tier, A+. Again, it's very similar. This is one of the best offenses in football. And while everyone might have been saying it was on paper last year, a lot of people might be asking what the question with them is Ben Johnson and all that. But honestly, I don't think the Ben Johnson issue is as much of an issue as what is this defense going to look like. Because last year there were times they got completely fried. Giants game. But anyways, you look at this defense and you're asking what difference guys do they have here. I'm not going to lie, at least on the linebacker side of it, where they do run a 4-3, which I don't love. But they didn't really do a ton different. Just telling you all that right now. Warning y'all. But anyways, let's get into this linebacker core as we start this front seven. Derek Barnes is a guy that will be having a significant role in terms of what they're going to be able to do in terms of multiplicity in this defense. There we go. He didn't play at all in 2024, which might not have been a bad thing. Last year in coverage, he was somewhat respectable. Again, especially in man, I think he didn't really get beat over the top as much. But in the open field, he was still kind of a wherewithal in terms of tackling, especially towards the edge. But his gap discipline was still really good, and he's definitely worked the field better than in years past. And I think as a blitzer, he's going to be a really good weapon there. I think that's, again, the multiplicity. That's where that comes in because you don't really need to have a safety always be the guy that's kind of pushing up. You can have a guy like Derek Barnes who isn't even a decoy. You just know he's coming as an offensive line. You have to prepare for it. And his pressure rate, I think, or not pressure rate, but his pressures was abnormally high for a guy you didn't really expect to be able to do that. So that's kind of like the dynamic part of his game that I'm really liking to see. So Derek Barnes in the past, he's a guy that I'm like, I don't love him really at all, but he's turned into a guy that's very competent, especially next to the best linebacker in football. Then you have Damone Clark next to him. Damone Clark is a guy that hasn't really been able to stay healthy, like even remotely, in the past in his career. Again, his really best year was 2023 with the Cowboys, where he was consistently their number one linebacker. Last year, didn't really get a ton of starting time, but with the Texans, he really started to play better, especially in coverage. He was very, very solid in zone when he got out there. He's never going to be a true man guy just because, again, I'm going to be honest, guys, he's kind of cooked. Because he obviously had some bad injury concerns with LSU. But on top of that, I still think he's going to be a guy that's going to be a reliable player for you. He's very, very instinctive. He's not, again, a huge playmaker by any means, but he's a solid backup there. Jack Campbell, he's the best linebacker in football right now. He is an absolute machine against the run. He is very, very hard to, I wouldn't say block, just get in front of. And as a blitzer, he flies around. And even in coverage, he's gotten so much better. In man, even against, I wouldn't say against the slot receiver, he's not Fred Warner, but he still gives you that, tenacity and just the instincts. They're so good. And he just doesn't miss tackles. He is, I think, pound for pound, the best tackler in football right now. And I think right now he does earn the best best linebacker in football. Again, that's really just because he was healthy last year. But again, him and Fred Warner are definitely competing for that spot. Then you have Devin White as the backup here. Devin White last year with the Raiders, he had himself a season. He was legitimately the only guy making plays downfield. He still has absolutely no instinctive awareness whatsoever. It's an issue. Against the run, he got washed out so many different times, but he's still getting coverage, was able to make a lot of different tackles. I think the technique has definitely gotten better. He did definitely better towards the end of the season as a blitzer, but in the passer rating, the completion percentage was again, it was exorbitant. Still, though, I think Devin White's a guy that could be a dynamic backup, kind of a change of pace. And again, he's in a better spot than he was when he left Tampa. You have Malcolm Rodriguez, who I don't really like at all. He's kind of a bum, but he doesn't. Again, last year, honestly, was mistake-free most games, which again is a good thing. And I really look at some of these Lions defenders, and the standard is just don't be a guy that screws up a ton, which again kind of is not a good culture set, but it's kind of what I've come to with this group. On tape, he didn't really play a lot last year. Again, he's not going to be playing a ton in this system, but still, Malcolm Rodriguez is a guy that he's a severe liability in coverage, but at least when you watch him out there, he's not going to be a guy that'll be completely, off the ball. You have Jimmy Rolder, who I'd like to see play a lot this year out of Michigan. He's got solid tackling technique. There's a little bit of a hitch in terms of his approach, though. It's just kind of weird. In coverage, he's very physical, which I like a lot. It would just be nice if he could kind of cover a little bit more ground, though. So we'll see if he can be the snatch Malcolm Rodriguez's spot, because I think he is overall a more dynamic player. Still, though, again, he's a rookie. There's definitely going to be some things, at least in terms of his run defensibility, that could definitely put that in jeopardy. For me, that linebacking core, though, is in a weird spot, but I'll probably give it a B+. Again, you have the best linebacker in football. It's kind of hard to mess that up. You might even say it's an A-tier group, but again, the fact that I don't really like Malcolm Rodriguez at all, and Derek Barnes wasn't, again, completely amazing last year is probably the one thing there. But still, you could probably give it an A-tier, and I wouldn't really scoff at you too much. We'll give that 27 point. No, screw it. We'll give it a 30. We'll give it an A-. There we go. Jack Campbell deserves that. All right, defensive line now. Aiden Hutchinson, last year kind of had a weird season. Still obviously the same guy as ever, career high in sacks. He wasn't quite as good as he was in 2024 before he got injured. Again, that was partly injured, but his pressures were still right up there. His first steps was even better than I was actually expecting to come out, which was surprising. His scissor move is still that number one elite move. I still would like to see him get into the grill a little bit more. That would really make him a guy that can legitimately be, other than Myles Garrett, be said to be the best guy in the league. But still, Aiden Hutchinson was highly productive productive last year. And, he's obviously a very, very good run defender as well. Again, he's an elite good dude. He's the number one guy. We know that. And obviously the question always is, what are you going to get on the other side from him? And DJ Wanham, who they brought in here from the Panthers, I don't know if he'll really give them that. I think he is more of a 2B than a true 2A number 2 guy. But still, again, as the Panthers' number 1 pass rusher for really the past 2 years, he has, at least pressure rate-wise, held up at least some of that own there. Again, he's always been a really respectable run defender. I think last year he wasn't as good at getting off blocks, but still doing a really good job of manipulating leverage and making very, very hard on those tackles to kind of create space against him. Also, he's been very, very stiff, which I don't love a lot. Again, kind of diminishes his bending ability, but it's very, very hard as a defensive as an offensive lineman to kind of gauge what he's going to do, and that kind of, again, where the speed to power comes in a lot of times, and he's also a guy that is very, very good at cutting inside, not even as a counter, just simply as a number 1 move. And I think that DJ Wanham's a guy that's kind of created those sort of niches in his game that it make it very, very hard for offensive linemen to anticipate what he's going to do, which at the end of the day is what you're going to want to do, especially when you have a deep enough toolbox like he does. So I expect him to have a solid season. I just don't know if he's going to truly be that number 2 guy that you can consistently see getting the quarterback, especially with the injury history, which is really just 2 years ago. Tyler Lacey, I don't really know much about his game. I know last year he did a really good job of getting to the edge, especially with those third down situations. Same time, though, he's still not a guy that I'm truly bought into yet. Tyree West, we'll see what happens with him. Peyton Turner, former first-round pick. Derek Moore out of Michigan is going to be expected to have a huge role here. I think best case scenario for him is that he's a guy that is consistently winning laterally, and again, starting to really show that bend, because he's definitely an athletic edge rusher, but there's really no pass rush plan right now for him, and that needs to develop this season for him to truly be their number 3 guy. I think him and G.J. Wanham, though, play a significant role with this pass rush, and these edge rushers will be able to do there. And he again, his run defender should be very, very solid. He's got very sound technique there. All right, now we go to the interior D-line. Ali McNeil's obviously been their star defensive tackle for a while now. Last year, only played 10 games. Obviously, the torn ACL in 2024. But he's a very, very effective run defender. And obviously, as a pass rush, he influences pockets better than most guys. He's an absolute stud. Le'Veon Onwuzurike, he's been next to him. Obviously, he was a disappointing second-round pick by the Lions a couple years ago. He obviously had the injury issue last year, but he's been a productive backup for them the past couple years. I think he's a guy that should be effective for them this year. Hopefully, he's back in healthy. Tyler Williams is the guy they drafted 2 years ago to be a run-defending primary guy, kind of a nose tackle sort of role. He was in that mostly last year. Again, just the pass rush presence was not there at all, and that has to improve. Honestly, as a run defender, he was pretty damn good, so I don't really have much to complain about there. But for a first-round pick, you got to have something at pass rush value, unless you're legitimately swallowing up holes every play like Vita Vea, which he wasn't, so just keep that in mind. Chris Smith, who the hell are you, dude? And then you also have Mekhi Wingo, who is horrible. He gets moved left and right. But for me, this D-line is probably going to get a B+. Again, you get 2 legit dudes there. Wanham and Onwuzurike are pretty good, too. The depth is definitely more lacking than usual. Pass rush, I'll also give a B. I'm stick toward more of a B. I think the D-line overall is going to be really good against the run, which I think is huge, just, again, projectability-wise. And definitely stressing more to the D tackles. But I think I'm going to give the pass rush a B just because you might have an over-reliance on Aiden Hutchinson again, and that obviously didn't really work out to their best interests. Now let's get this cornerback room and this is the overall secondary and see how lousy that's looking. Okay, guys, let's look at this Lions cornerback room and again the secondary as a whole. And I'm not gonna lie, it's an absolute shit show. All right, TJ Reed's the number 1 corner. I'm not really concerned about that because honestly, last year he held the role pretty damn well. He is a zone-based corner though. He's gonna cover a lot of ground on the boundary, make it very, very hard for guys to beat them over the top, especially again kind of beating them up the seam as well. He's very, very good at anticipating those routes. But he is not a man corner. Do not put him in press. Do not put him in any sort of situation where he has to do that because he's just not going to be as comfortable, and he's not overly physical really at all. I will say, though, if you need to put him in standard man or even off coverage, he's still good enough. And his tackling is at least somewhat competent enough for, again, you don't have to worry about it. But he is at best when he's reading out the field and being engaging what these receivers are going to do. Just keep that in mind. He's not a true man-to-man corner, but he is their number 1 guy right now. Rod Yassine is their 4th corner. Very, very solid tackler. Last year was honestly really solid. Really, the only issue I had with him is that over the middle of the field, he didn't undercut enough routes, which you might be saying, why the hell would you do that? There were a lot of plays where he was in the position to do so, and I think that he could have prevented a lot more yardage just overall in terms of his coverage profile. Still, though, Rod Yassine had a really nice season. Keith Abney, I guess, is going to be their number 2 at Arizona State. I like him a lot because he's very, very good at preventing, again, these kind of short yardage plays. He's, again, just anticipates the stuff so well, and he has very, very good close on the football. The problem with him is that he doesn't really have the hip fluidity nor the long-range burst to kind of recover on certain plays, which kind of worries me. Still, though, you get just, again, high-quality, consistent reps underneath, and over the middle of the field, he's an absolute monster as well. He has elite athleticism, at least in terms of vertical, to make those plays, which is huge. I just think Keith Abney, though, in terms of the length, could use a little bit of work. Especially in terms of the downfield, because then you got to have better range there if you're him. But still, he's going to be a really big guy in this system, especially in terms of anticipating those routes underneath. Nick Whiteside, I'm not going to lie, guys, he didn't play enough for me to really get a full picture on him last year. I'll watch him in preseason. That's just the best way I can say it. Khalil Dorsey and Deshaun Rucker, get out of here. Roger McCreary's their slot. He didn't really play at all last year. Kind of a weird season with the Titans. Again, the Rams just didn't really use him. That's probably the best way to put it. He was okay with the Titans, though. Kind of his worst year, I'm not going to lie, statistically. Obviously, 2023 with the Lions. It's 2023 with the Titans. He got targeted a crap ton, but that wasn't a bad thing because he did a lot of good stuff in coverage. 2024, kind of more of a down year. Wasn't as much of a playmaker. Still, though, was solid. Like I said, Titans numbers worse with the Titans there. But again, the Rams brought him in for a reason. He didn't really get much playing time with them. He's a good man guy in the slot nickel, though. I just really need to see this dude kind of get back to that 2023 form to really be confident. Christian Eisen will be the starter, but I don't know what's going on there. And Ennis Rakestraw kind of faded out here. Obviously, the biggest problem in the secondary is that Terry Arnold is no longer a part of the team. He's an absolute moron for what he did. I think, again, there's really no other to put it. You choose what you want to do in life, bro, and you got what you deserved. But with Terry Arnold being gone, this is a very tough situation in this cornerback room. I'm going to give them a C+. I want to give them lower, but I think they have starting caliber players. I'm confident in that. The depth, though, is an issue. We'll give it a C. Again, I like DJ Reed, but again, we know what he can do, and him being that number one true alpha corner is not going to be it. And I'm just not comfortable with this depth right now. Again, when you lose a guy like Terry Arnold, who's supposed to be your number one dog man corner, and you lose him because he's an absolute moron, it's just kind of hard to really see this cornerback room being successful this year. But who knows? Maybe they can step up and prove me wrong. All right, safety. Obviously, this is arguably the best safety duo in football when they're healthy. Brian Branch last year was quite good before his injury. I still don't think in terms of him being a true box guy, he was as effective as he was in 2024. He just didn't really look the same. Still, though, in terms of range and coverage, he honestly might have been better than 2024. But yeah, Brian Branch is an elite safety. There's no other way to say it. Avonte Maddox is his backup. He honestly filled in nicely for him last year. The range is just really hasn't been there in a while, obviously, since he was a cornerback with the Eagles. You still get really high quality man coverage from him, especially against slot receivers, though. He does really well against those not so physical dudes. Tackling still isn't an issue, though, as a true safety, but Avonte Maddox has really turned into a quality backup for them. Kirby Joseph is probably the best playmaker they have on this on the defensive side of the ball, but he only played 6 games last year and wasn't really good at all in those games. In 2024, again, he was arguably the best. Again, in terms of we took about the actual coverage ability and the actual playmaking ability, he had 9 picks is ridiculous. Again, that's what you're going to get with him. He's going to be an absolutely ridiculous playmaker. That's just who he is. Always been an inconsistent tackler, though, you get with Kirby Joseph, but he's an absolute just beast. And I hope that this year he bounces back. But again, the fact that those guys had extended injury time last year is a little bit of a concern. You have Chuck Clark, who I don't even know how he's still in the league. I guess he can still tackle. He anticipates pretty well. He's always had solid instincts, but he is basically a box sort of safety right now in his career. For me, though, again, the top 2 guys are too good. I'm going to still give them an A, even though, again, the injuries are concerned. It was an A+ last year. You could obviously give those 2 guys that again. I just don't know if, again, it's just the injury that I'm a little bit concerned about, and if they can come back and still be that high level in terms of coverage and even just playmaking. If we added that up, though, that's going to be 123 points to this defense, which is still really, really solid. And you just have to understand that there's just certain situations that have gone on this offseason that has limited this defense's ability to really be successful. But there's still a lot of talent on this side of the ball, which I think is a reason, believe in what they're going to do this year, obviously, after a little bit down, a disappointing 2025. There we go. Let's get into this, some other things before the overall grade gets revealed. And with this Lions special teams unit, there's not too much to talk about. Again, there's definitely some influx in terms of the return unit, but obviously Jake Bates is an absolute beast as a kicker. Jack Fox has been one of the better punters while he's regressed over the last couple years in the NFL. Greg Dortch is a really solid punt returner. I don't know much about Sailors. I know he can fly, though, which is cool at ETSU. And then you obviously have Hogan Hatton, who's a newer long snapper. They had some issues last year. Nothing too big, though. I'll probably give them a B- as a special teams unit. Again, it's a good group. That's going to give them 7 points, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll give them that there. All right, now the depth of this football team. Quarterback depth, I'd probably give them a D. I'm not really comfortable at all with Teddy Bridgewater. Running back depth, I'd probably give them a C. It's not the greatest. I still think Isaiah Pacheco in the past has been really good. And even Sione Vaki, we'll see what happens. Jacob Saylor's also a guy. We'll see what happens. So, you could probably say it's C-. I'm going to say we're at a D+ so far, though. Receiver depth, honestly, is probably a C. Just again, at the end of the day. So we're going to probably say so far we're at like a C-. Tight end depth, I'd probably give a B-. We'll give it a B. So if we say a B there, we're probably saying we're still at a C-. O-line depth overall is probably a C-. So again, offensively at least, I'm going to say a C- for their depth. Defensively, though, the D-line overall probably stays a C. So I guess we can bump the overall grade up to a C. Linebacker, I'm going to give a B+, so we're probably up to still chilling at a C. Secondary as a whole, I mean, the cornerback depth is pretty lousy. I'm going to probably say a D+. Yeah, we'll say a... We'll probably say a D+, and then obviously the safety depth isn't bad. I'll probably give that a B-. So overall, I'll probably just say a C as all for the roster. The Lions definitely don't have the deepest roster really at all. There's not one position I look at outside of linebacker. I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty deep position. Again, it's just the fact that, again, you look at, I guess tight end's okay too. Again, you just don't have the most reliable guys in terms of the backups. There's just some washed-up dudes, especially at corner. It's like Rock Yassin, how good can we expect him to be? And even like Nick Whiteside, like what are we doing? So that's why I'm saying a C there. I'm not the most comfortable with their depth this year. Still though, it's not like a huge deal considering how many good players they have. But it's still again like not the greatest situation to be in. Now we go to the identity of this football team. Dan Campbell's always gonna have this offense moving. I'm not really concerned about them at all. But it's really about how can this defense prevent the big plays, which didn't hamper them as much last year. And in those one-score games, can they really translate? Because if those things can happen, I don't really see why this team can't figure things out. And also, again, it's always a question with Jared Goff. Still, though, I think they're in a decent spot. I'm going to give them a B for their identity, but it's always a question, is Jared Goff enough for us? And that's, again, a question they're always going to have. So if we add those up, that's going to be 67 plus 123 plus 150. That's going to be 340 points, which is a really high grade for this roster. That's going to put them in the A- here, which is right where they belong. This is a loaded roster in a lot of ways, guys, with an easy schedule. I don't really see why the scheme can't get well past their win total from last year, and hopefully they do so. That's really all I have for you guys, Lions fans. Again, really good roster. Like I said, a lot of people love what's going on. I really love what's going on, too. Again, the injury concerns with the safeties is probably like the one thing I'll talk about, too. That's all I have for you guys. Dan Campbell, hope you'll have a decent season. We'll talk about you guys periodically before the season starts. But that's all I have here. And, yeah, here's a sneak peek at our next team. And trust me, this team also has a pretty good roster.
Snap, Ryan runs one to the end zone. Gage got it. That is a touchdown. What a catch. What a throw. And he was working on Thomas. A 20-yard strike with a flag. Well, teams the last couple of weeks have been going after Thomas when they get him in man-to-man coverage, and this time no different by the Falcons as Gage goes up over the top and is able to haul it in.